After the breakout success of Breathless, Jean-Luc Godard was offered a 5-picture deal with Warner Brothers. Subsequently, he moved to Los Angeles, where he met and fell in love with Natalie Wood. The first movie he made under his deal with Warner Brothers, Mother Died Today, was a smash hit, propelling Godard into the stratosphere as the first superstar director, precipitating his breakup with Wood and his affair with another young actress, Faye Dunaway. After the failure of Godard and Dunaway's first pairing, Bonnie and Clyde, Godard was forced to make a movie with the manufactured rock act the Monkees, which, in the end, proved to be a fortuitous assignment, at least artistically speaking, as the band were as interested in deconstructing their image as Godard was in deconstructing the product he felt he was being forced to make. Godard's head was greeted with bewildered shoulder shrugs by the critics, made almost no money, and signaled the end of Godard's California journey. Back in France, Godard fell into a drug and alcohol stupor which lasted the better part of the 1970s and 1980s. Godard finally resurfaced in 1991 with Cross My Heart and Hope to Die, a half-essay, half-action film about the life and death of Guy Debord, which partially restored his reputation before his sudden death in 1992 via phenobarbital overdose. Mike Nesmith attended Godard's funeral in Paris and said, "He let us show how unhappy we were with ourselves at a time when no one wanted to know or cared how unhappy we were, and for that I will always be eternally grateful." I think he was just as unhappy with himself as we were with ourselves, and that really comes through in the film. Some days he would tell us that he didn't want to shoot and would rather just burn down the set and film that instead. I think there's some lost footage somewhere of Davy really giving him the business, telling him that he had no idea how to direct actors, and this is what Jean-Luc wanted to start the movie with, just a close-up of Davy telling him how awful he was, which wasn't true, by the way. Davy loved him, thought he was great, we all did. The only people who didn't like him were the suits. When they found out he was putting in the execution of Nguyễn Văn Lém not once, but twice, man did they flip. But back then someone was always flipping out about something. I feel like he really captured that feeling in the movie, of things spinning away from each other, like how maybe the decade was ending with a tremendous amount of centrifugal force. I don't think anyone else managed to capture that about the 1960s, at least not on film. Because that's how it felt back then, like everything was coming apart, like you're sitting in a plane, looking out the window, and watching the wing as the bolts are shaking themselves loose from the nuts. Anais Nin, I am constantly reconstructing a pattern of something forever lost and which I cannot forget. So what if she asked you to watch her perform her pre-tennis lesson stretching ritual? So what if while she was stretching she looked you dead in the eye and dared you to keep watching her? So what if the clothes she was wearing while doing her stretches were too small for her and barely covered her nether regions? So what if she asked you to watch her not only once, but 2, 3, 4 times? You were free at any time to stop watching. And you chose not to. You chose to watch her perform her pre-tennis stretching ritual, and now you will suffer the consequences, all of which are painful and rather unpleasant. Would you believe there's a 35-year-old elementary school teacher who, when he comes home from work every night, calls up his buddies, who they themselves have just gotten home from their jobs as construction workers, janitors and supermarket cashiers, and tells them to come over and jam in his garage, even though they're doing much more than jamming, they're playing original songs written by the elementary school teacher, songs that come to him while he's teaching 8th graders about world history. Songs that they then record onto the cheapest equipment possible, songs that sounds like an extension of what The Who were doing in the late 1960s and early 1970s, songs that sound like they could not have possibly been written by anyone but a seasoned professional, songs that are captured on homemade cassettes. Which somehow, over the course of time, wind up in the hands of Pete Townshend, who then, through his various connections, tracks down the elementary school teacher, calls him up at home, and says, "Hello, my name is Pete Townshend, I've been looking for myself for years now, and apparently I reside at this location?" Would you believe it? Christopher Bollas, when the liar creates a world for the other, he believes in that world himself, and he feels both more alive and closer to someone who shares the world with him. When the truth dispels the lie, it takes with it the world of self and object representations created by the liar. What is present is the trauma of a shocking departure of a shared reality. Robert Kramer, how do you translate rage and resentment into cinematic form? The only way to do that is to destroy the form, slowly, over the course of time, however long the story goes on for. I'm not quite sure there are any commercial filmmakers right now who are willing to go that far to get this particularly American phenomenon on screen. The only example I can think of right now is the end of Two Lane Blacktop, with the film literally burning up in the gate of the projector. But that was too subtle, in my opinion. Effective, but I think the people who saw that film didn't pick up on the slow burn. In a sense, Hellman and Wurlitzer did too good of a job diagnosing the end of the counterculture. I think it flew over the heads of everyone. I mean, those two characters, no, 3 characters if you include Warren Oates, those are really angry guys, right? They're positively seething, aren't they? So, by the end, when the film burns up, it's almost a psychic projection of everything these characters have been feeling. What a violent way to end a film, though. It's the only film that I can think of from the 1970s that has a truly apocalyptic ending. And me, yes, I'm interested in doing violence to the form, but in a way that communicates what's going on inside of the characters. And how do you do this in a more visceral, tangible way? Through mise en scene? Through sound? Through editing? How to destroy the structure in which the characters have to move without rendering the film unwatchable? I suppose you can simply show the rage and resentment within the frame, on the faces of actors, in their words, but I don't know. Violence is structural, not just personal. Raoul Echelman, history, it seems, is moving rapidly beyond its all too hastily proclaimed end.